Hi everyone, welcome back to Lee's Play. Today we are going to be doing the 5th tutorial for Tomb Editor and Tomb Engine. Today we're really going to be wrapping up building and texturing in the editor. By now you're pretty much going to have most of it down. And then after this tutorial we'll move on to other sections like doing lighting and also placing objects and triggering them and other special things you can do in the engine. But today we're going to really wrap up everything because you basically have most of the skills. We're also going to finish building the level today and we're going to look at adding areas that use all of Lara's moveset. Obviously, the Lost Valley was created with the first Tomb Raider game. Lara's movesets have improved a lot over the 5 original games. She has even a lot more moves now in the new game engine. So let's implement her level and kind of pepper it out so that it seems relevant to her new moveset. If you've been following along, you should pick up here at the end of the last video. I gave you homework to build the swimming area and the rooftop for this underground waterfall cave. And we're going to go ahead and jump straight in. We have some water here, and obviously we want to add these textures onto it so you can tell it's water. Currently it just looks like a hole in the ground, but we want the player to make it really easy to know that we're looking at water. So to do that, what we basically have to do is almost like add a layer to the ground that we can apply the texture on it, even though it is a door and a portal into another room, albeit that room is filled with water. So what we kind of want to do is actually to load into this room here, which is the water room. We're going to select our door by right-clicking, which will highlight it in green, and we know that's selecting the ceiling up here. And then up here we have some options called Toggle No Opacity, Textured and Solid, and Textured and Traversable. If you press this button here, it will actually draw the tiles back on the ceiling. Even though this is still a doorway, it's still connected to this room, but it's going to add this onto the ceiling, which allows us now to apply textures. So like normal, we're going to go ahead and apply our textures. When it comes to water textures, if they're transparent like this, sometimes people like to use additive. It gives a different effect. You can experiment with this yourself, whether it's normal or additive. For this texture set, you can actually use normal. But depending on what textures you're using in the future, you might have to try additive as well. But for this tutorial, you can keep it at normal. Now, if we turn the map back this way, as you can see, it doesn't show the water on top, it only shows at the bottom. So what we're actually going to do is undo that. And the reason for that is we need to add a special property to the texture that makes it show on both sides. We need the texture to show on both sides. So there's a button here called Set Double-Sided Attribute. We're going to press that. And now when we apply the texture one more time, make sure to only apply to areas that have a door. Now when we pan the camera, you can see the texture shows on both sides. So to recap, when you're applying a texture, you have to make sure it's set double-sided if you're going to be doing water. Let's go through our room list and look for more swimming areas. This one here is the Jungle Temple swimming pool. Let's do the same. Let's highlight that, and then let's go for textured and traversable. We select our water texture. We make sure it's set to double-sided, and we're going to apply it again. And then when we look up, you should see we have water. If we go to the Cog Raptor cave, let's select this little tunnel here, which if you remember from the last video, we made into water. We're going to select that again and make it textured and traversable. And we're going to add our water texture. And then we're going to do the same this side out onto the waterfall. So we have added now the water texture to all areas of the map that does have a swimming pool. So when you load into the level now, there will be a water texture. You can also use these buttons on horizontal doorways as well, not just on water or vertical ones. So I selected this portal way here. And if I go to textured and traversable, it will also turn that on. And we can even apply textures like on these types of portals too. So we take an example of this. We can apply one there. So Lara has to make her way through some grass textures. What I actually might do though is put some here like that and one there. And then for these two in the middle, we're going to hit invisibility. Now don't forget, we want to make sure they're double-sided. So I'm going to go back to them and make sure double-sided selected. Yeah, we should be good now that we have double-sided turned on. We might even do the same over by this temple. Let's go for textured and traversable. If you don't want Lara to be able to pass through it, you can do textured and solid. For example, you could have Lara walking on glass, like a glass roof or something. You could do that and use textured and solid, but for everything we want it to be traversable. So maybe again, we might just apply a texture so that as Lara makes her way into the temple, there's some grass around it. It's a grass formation. The next question you may have is, well, how do I animate the water? If you load into the level, currently the water stays still, it doesn't move. To do that, it's pretty simple. We're going to press the animations button. We're going to press the plus button to make a new animation set. We're going to call it Animated Water. And then what we're going to do is zoom out and make sure our water texture is selected, and then press add. And as you can see, we're basically going to be adding them. And as we add a new texture, you can see it already start to animate. So this is how the animation's looking. As you can see, the water is moving quite fast. Depending on what you want to animate, it's basically all trial and error and experimenting, but you can see that water is moving quite fast. So to make it move slower, we're going to reduce the frame per second count. And we may go for 4. So that's what the water looks like at 4 frames a second, which basically means it'll run through all 4 of these textures because we have 4 of them in 1 second. So we're going to press OK. And if you ever apply any of these textures on your map, they will animate. If you select any one of the 4, they will animate. So let's go back into the animation panel and let's make a new one for the waterfall as well. So let's go for Animated Waterfall. And let's do the same thing again by selecting our 4 waterfall textures. Maybe we'll go for 8 frames a second because, you know, it's the water is going down the wall. So obviously it would move quite fast. And that looks pretty good at 8 frames a second. While we're here, we might as well animate all of these. So let's do another one. And then we're going to select our texture here and here and here and here. And I wanted to match up with the other waterfall, so I'm going to set this to 8 as well, so they synchronize with each other. And then I'm going to finally animate the last set of textures. And we're going to add this, that, and that. So wherever they are on the map, we should see them animating, and that's really exciting because we have waterfalls all over the place. Now, because this grass is kind of leading to nowhere, I might go in and fix that. Let's find something. I might maybe put that there. The next thing we're going to look at is actually adding sounds to the textures, which means when Lara is walking or running or jumping over them, what noises are they going to make? So as you can see, we're outside, we're in a jungle, there's a lot of grass everywhere. Let's go and add some sounds to the grass. So when Lara runs on it, you hear grass rather than the default sound Lara's footsteps make. So you're familiar with the animations window. Let's open up sounds. It's basically going to be about making your selection and then what sound would you like to play when Lara's on that selection. So as you can see, we have actually a lot of grass around here. As you can see, it can be quite hard to visualize, but basically we're going to make our selection. I want all of these textures to sound like grass because they're primarily grass. So I'm going to go down to grass and assign sound, and I'm going to do the same for that selection there. Well, this is a texture we use a lot. Maybe we can make this grass too, just to add some variety. So when Lara's, running on the stone, it'll sound like stone, but let's have a new sound effect when she's going on grass. The last thing you can do to your textures is actually add something called a bump map. A bump map is kind of like an algorithm that can make a texture look more three-dimensional. So obviously a texture is like a picture, and you apply that picture to a tile on the map. While adding bump mapping can also give it an extra dimension and make it look more 3D using an algorithm. And that's something you can also try if you want your textures to look more high resolution and more detailed. So what I'm going to do here is select this range of rocks, which you see throughout the level a lot, and you can apply different levels of bump mapping. So in this case, what I've noticed, you really have to experiment because how it affects each texture is different. These are all different algorithms, but from my testing I noticed is that different levels typically reflect the intensity. So For the most part, I'd probably use level 1 or level 2 bump mapping, so I'm going to try level 2. These are advanced settings for your level, so a lot of this now we're really getting into trial and error. You're going to have to test it out in your level. How does it affect your textures? How do they look now? But the rule of thumb is typically the higher the level you use, the higher the intensity of the effect. So I'm probably going to limit that to level 2. And I really only want it on the stones and the rocks. I don't want my grass to look too sharp. I'm going to apply to these stones as well. I think that could look cool. And again, you won't be able to see these effects straight away, like the sounds or again, the bump maps. We're going to have to wait until we load into the level and you can kind of see for yourself how they affect the in-game visuals. Another thing I want to look at is actually doing corner walls. With Tomb Editor and Tomb Engine, you can actually now have corners. As you can see, everything in this map is very 90 degrees, everything's all square. You can actually do corners to make your levels look a bit more detailed. So what I'm going to go and do is look at rooms on the map that are kind of boring. So as you can see, this is a tunnel we made in the last tutorial, and as you can see, it's very, very bland. So something simple you can do is to go into 3D mode and maybe corner this wall rather than have it be square. To do that, you probably already saw the button diagonal wall. Press it, and as you can see, it applies a diagonal to the map. And you can still adjust this wall like every other wall. So I'm going to add a subdivision there. And you can basically just texture it as you normally would texture anything else. I might do the same down here and add another corner wall and texture this. Likewise, there's also corner steps and ceilings, and they'll do exactly what you imagine them to do. When you press floor step, it will half your tile diagonally, and that kind of allows you to manipulate any half of the tile that you wish. So for example, we may decide maybe to pull this one up, and maybe we can hide a little pickup down there, and it just makes the environment look a bit more interesting. Alternatively, maybe we change our mind, we don't want that. We can change the angle of the step. So maybe we go for something like this instead. That might look a bit more organic. And we can just apply our texture as we normally would, like that. So there are different features. It probably doesn't suit this map the most because this was built upon the idea that there's only squares. This is a Tomb Raider 1 map. But you do have diagonals, and that can be very useful. For example, if you're building urban areas like, you know, the London levels or a city level or Lara's home, or even any different types of tombs and temples, you might find a diagonal comes in handy for you. Now, when I had you make the exteriors, you also probably saw that there are triangles and diagonals being cut on these tiles here. You can make diagonal slopes if you wish. So if you take an area like this area here, if you hold Control on your keyboard and click, you can see the arrows are actually pointing not straight, but they're pointing in 90 degrees. So for example, we can point 190 degrees and add a texture like that. And that can add a lot of dimension, for example, to natural environments like these ones where you have lots of stony mountains and rocks. That can make it look a lot more interesting. We might add another one here. Again, hold Control, pull it up, and it might be just another thing you can try out to see if it makes your level look any better. Right, now that I've shown you all that, let's build out the rest of the Lost Valley by finishing off building the caves. And with that, we maybe will add in opportunities for Lara to use off her new moves. So it won't be an exact recreation of the Tomb Raider 1 Lost Valley. We're going to make it slightly different. So Lara can monkey swing, for example. She can climb a ladder. She can go around a corner. We'll add in all sort of neat stuff like that. So the first thing that I actually may do, that I'm thinking about it, is build out the water area. So obviously in this area of the Lost Valley, if Lara falls into water, she goes through the currents and ends up in the waterfall. So I might build that out first. And what we probably want to do is connect it to this room, which actually has the waterfall. I'm gonna add a door and turn new room. I'm gonna crop it and make it nice and small. So this will be a water room. Give it a nice simple texturing. Yeah, so that's going to be like where it comes out onto the waterfall, which looks pretty good to me. Again, we're going to do the trick I just showed you, which is textured and traversable. Obviously going this way, she'll go into the water, but looking out here, it'll just look quite normal. In fact, in this situation, I'm not going to make it a double-sided texture because I don't want to see the waterfall on that side. You kind of, when you're swimming down that area, you want to look out onto the cliff. But when you're kind of standing from this angle, you just want to see the water flowing down. That could look pretty darn cool. Now, the reason why I'm going to make a second water area, which we'll cover in a later tutorial, but Lara has the ability to use the cog wheels to lower a door, which stops the water from coming out onto the valley, and it redirects the water in another direction. So this is kind of where I'm doing some kind of further planning in my head. And maybe we could have Lara set that off around here. So maybe we'll add another room that also has water, but really is for the rest of the cave. So what I might do now is just build the cave area out on top. Get it level. Looks good to me. Let's maybe put some walls here. Let's connect this water to the room above it. Let's add this out onto the roof. Cool. Maybe we can make this look real slippery, so Lara doesn't want to fall off this and fall into the water. In fact, maybe we'll even crop the room, just making this look less perfect, so it does look like an underground cave system and it's not like it's been sculpted meticulously. If Lara's entry point in the level is kind of around here, maybe we can give her something new and interesting to do in the area. Maybe we make her crawl into this hole. In previous Tomb Raider, she didn't have this move. She could only crawl if she could climb it fully, but not like when she kind of can just kind of do a step. But thankfully in the new engine, she has the move built in, so she can kind of crawl her way through that gap there. So maybe we'll kind of construct something around that. You don't want a broken texture, so I'm going to see if I can undo that. Turn this into a wall. Bring this up. Pull this down a bit. This can be a really good opportunity to use the new triangles I've just shown you if you want to pull it back like this. Just to make your geometry look more organic. That looks pretty darn good to me. So we want Lara to do some more platforming, so maybe there's going to be a bridge here that Lara puts in the cog pieces. The bridge changes the water to go in another direction this way. I'm going to build this out like some type of structure just to give Lara the opportunity to add a drawbridge that she can raise up to trap the water from getting out. So I might put that there. Planning ahead, in the future there's going to be some type of door that we're going to put there which stops the water from going out over the valley. That's going to trap the waterfall so she can access that secret tomb, Qualipex's tomb, which we know is behind the waterfall. So I built this little structure, and then I think we're just going to do some platforming to make Lara make her way to the cog area. So something we could probably do is maybe add in a monkey swing section. So, you know, we could probably put a lot of water around here, and Lara needs to make her way over to this cliff area, maybe. That could look pretty good. So she's gonna have to monkey swing up here. Yeah, so maybe we have like a whole water section here, you know, like it's just all water. You can kind of see me, I'm not replicating the original map because we want to use Lara's new move sets. So what we're really thinking about is using our imagination to kind of, how can we add some cool new moves for Lara to use? So maybe what we'll do is just put some textures in the room just to kind of show us where we're going. So as I said, I wanted that to be a monkey swing area. So to make something a monkey swing area, let's find a texture that will tell the player you can hang out of that. You can climb on that and swing out of it and do a monkey swing. You typically want to use a texture you've never used before, because if you've used a texture like grass, for example, if a player sees that again, they'll get the impression, oh, I can't do anything with that. But we've never used this texture, for example, which is actually quite man-made. So maybe we'll do something with this, and that will just tell the player you can monkey swing on that. Now, to make this climbable, to do a monkey swing, it's not going to be like doing animations or sounds or bump maps. What we actually have to go back to is our sector options. So we're going to select the area that we want to be monkey swing, and we're going to simply press set monkey swing sector property, And now these tiles have been marked as monkey swing, so if Lara grabs the ceiling on any of these tiles, she'll be able to do a monkey swing, which is obviously that sector we've put there. So I'm kind of planning it out already, and even without the paint mode on, if you go into 3D mode, you will see the pink color. So that will kind of tell you what you have enabled for that sector. Give us some idea where we're going. I'm just going to apply some textures down because this might just look quite chaotic. You're not really getting into my head. So I'm imagining this could be water. I may even change my mind. We don't want Lara to be able to jump from this area over to that area. And actually, we could do something crazy. Maybe this is where the cogs are going to go. She'll have to do one more detour. Maybe to tell the player this is a special area. We'll add some cool geometry. Maybe we'll even introduce some temple textures to let us know that this relates somehow to Qualipec's tomb. So what I'm realizing is we kind of need a sector here for Lara to be able to stand onto. I have just built out the environment and kind of textured it and shaped it. I'll go through it room by room. So this is our first room, which is basically where Lara does all the platforming. It connects to the original waterfall cave area, obviously to the rest of the outside jungle. And I imagine in this room is also where the cog puzzle would be. So I even placed a lever texture there. So this is the first room that I built. The second room I built is the pool room underneath it, which connects to this area. This is filled with water, and when Lara jumps into it, obviously she'll swim. It will not pull her into the waterfall just yet. We'll do that in another tutorial, but the water, it's water down there, and if she jumps in, she will swim. The third room that we built is this diversion area. I call it cog diversion. But essentially what it is, we can imagine in the future, there'll be some door barriers we'll put there, and that'll stop the water from coming in. So there is water there now, but in the future we can turn the water off. And the idea is when she runs the cog puzzle, we'll lift the doors up there to divert the water this way, and it'll shut the water off here so Lara can access the temple underneath, like in the Lost Valley. But currently for the beginning tutorials, we just have the water turned on everywhere, and the water will not pull Lara out there just yet. Which brings us on to the fourth room, which is this other swimming area that we built. We need to have them separate. The reason why these aren't just one big room is obviously in the future we need the ability to turn the water on and off individually. No matter what, there will always be water in this area, but it's just more so in the future making sure we can turn the water on and off for this area here, and then for this area here. So as you can see, you can imagine in the future there'll be some bridge or door, like some shutters to stop the waterfall. Another thing I've done with the geometry out here, as you saw before we met this monkey bars, I've changed the texture into skulls. I didn't like the wooden beams, it didn't make sense. So the idea is that Lara will monkey swing here, then she'll have to shimmy around the corner to make her way here, and then what we're actually going to do now is make this wall here climbable. So Lara can climb it like a ladder, and she can even climb around the corner to safely make her way here, because obviously in the future she cannot get into the water. It will drag her off into the waterfall, but when she first comes here there'll be no water there, so she can safely climb it. A new move in 10, however, is that even though we currently have this filled with water, you can still climb on this like a ladder, even from swimming. You could never do that before in the classic games. This is a new move for the new engine, and we're going to implement it together. So to do that, what we want to do is find our walls, which is these walls here. So it's going to be the 3 walls with the skulls on it that we want to turn into a ladder. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the tiles just below it and press this button called climb on north sector side, and what it will do is it will apply a climbing property to this wall. So we applied the climbing property to this wall here, but we also need Lara to climb on the ladder around the corner, so we need to also put another ladder going east. So for this reason we're going to go climb on east sector side, and that will apply the property, so Lara will be able to climb up that wall even from water, and she'll be able to climb around the corner to make her way over to this area, which will have the cog puzzle. We can also put climbing walls in other areas of the map to make the gameplay more varied and interesting. Let's take this tunnel room here. This is what we built in the last tutorial. This was the old way, which was to use different blocks to help Lara climb up, but obviously she can't climb a wall. So maybe something that we'll do instead is to make this a climbing wall instead. So why don't we find the same skull texture, and then what we're going to do is, since this wall here is south, we're going to place the climbing ladder climb on south sector side, which as you can see now applies the property to this wall which we want her to climb. The actual last room we need to build for this is the entry to Qualipec's tomb underneath the waterfall. So let's build that now. Let's put it where we think it should go. So let's get them aligned. Let's go back to the waterfall cave. Let's just turn off all portals because we know we want the entrance to the tomb to be underneath this waterfall. And we're just going to add a door. And then we're going to select room 25, which is the new one we just created. And as you can see, that is impossible to do because we can't have two portals on one tile. So we're going to have to do some problem solving here so that we can actually have both. So the problem here is that you can't have two doors or portals on one tile. So we're going to have to use our imagination and some problem solving to figure out how can we put a doorway here even though there's already a doorway here. So the answer, you're kind of almost looking at it, is that we had to create a second room, which was a roof. So we might have to even go further than that. We might even have to make a third room. Let's do some problem solving together. So this is the original waterfall cave. Why don't we go ahead and disconnect the ceiling? So we're going to select the portal and delete it to disconnect the ceiling. So as you can see, they're no longer connected. A cool feature you can do in Tomb Editor is to actually duplicate a room. Let's go ahead and do that now. It also duplicates objects. So in this new room, we also have to delete Lara because we can't have two of those on the map. If you remember this waterfall cave here, there's actually a doorway there into this water pool room. So maybe if we think about it, let's divide the room vertically so that this 4 sectors here are like a different room. So it's like having two ceilings in this cave area. So maybe we can work towards something like that. Not as hard as you could maybe think it would be. So why don't we go ahead and disconnect this portal here so it's no longer connected to the water. So we need to kind of work together and we're going to actually lower these rooms. I'm going to use the flatten floor button just to make it really simple for ourselves. And now we should be able to lower the ceiling by at least 3 clicks. That looks pretty good to me. These might need to be flattened too. Perhaps maybe we'll even go one further. So let's lower it one more tile to make it an even 4. So now the ceiling is 16 rather than 20 when we originally built it. Now let's use our duplicate room, which we grabbed here. Call this the copy. And let's go in the other direction. I'm going to flatten all of this and raise it right up to what we need it to be. So now, this is a really quick and dirty way of doing it, but we can call this waterfall cave pool entry. And essentially what we're basically going to do is connect it to below us. So now when we draw portals, it should look like that. We're going to have to do some tile fixing. And then on the ceiling, that connects us to the roof. So now what became, what was used to be just ceiling and cave, we now had to turn into 3 rooms. And that's because you just can't have 2 portals on one tile. So if we turn the painting area back on, we're going to have to do some texture fixing, but that's pretty quick. We can do that ourselves. So now if we draw all the rooms, you can see for the most part it's mostly fixed. We probably will have to do some adjustments down here, just fix up some texturing. Okay, this looks pretty good to me. So what I'm trying to illustrate now is that we're going to go to our waterfall cave, the first room we ever built in the first tutorial, and we're going to connect that to the entrance to Qualipec's tomb. So we'll call this entry to Qualipec tomb. And then this room here, which we talked to portals, is a very small room. We're going to connect out to that waterfall area. So we're going to press add portal and to sink pool room 1. And then we're going to turn on textured and traversable because we want the waterfall texture to show, which we've talked about before. And then now down here, As you can see, there's a really big gap. So we can honestly just make this a really small room because the entrance to Qualipex's tomb, if we remember, was quite small. So we might just do something like this, pull the ceiling down to 4 blocks, add a wall, and do something like that with a nice transition texture like this. So now back out here in the waterfall cave, what we can actually do is turn this on. Now, typically what happens is before Lara activates the cog switch, it would be textured and solid so that Lara would not be able to make her way through. And then actually they would turn it off so that, there would be the entry to Qualipex's tomb, and they'd even change the texture to have normal waterfall. But because we kind of, we want access, we're going to make it textured and traversable just for this moment. And then in a future tutorial, we can refine that. Lastly though, we do want Lara's iconic swan dive position, so we'll make sure we keep that there. So this should still work out nicely, so Lara can go still in swan dive. So this is some problem solving that can come up when you're making your level, and you just really have to prepare for it. The last room we actually do need to build is the entry from the previous level. So if anyone has played Tomb Raider 1, she originally comes from the city of Vilcabamba. So we can quickly add that in because that's just a small, simple room. And maybe just to show that we're coming into a new level, because that's how the level starts out, we'll have these textures to show that we're transitioning into a new environment. And we'll maybe find a really great transition texture to use. So maybe we can do something like that. And originally there would be a door there. We can even select the tile and right click and say move Lara there. Let's rotate. So Lara's been moved there. So this is exactly like the original Lost Valley level. We've built it out, so congratulations. Together we have created the entire Lost Valley, all of it. We can turn texturing on to see all of our work. We built the entire jungle, we built the temples, and we even built the cog area. So for the final time, let's go in and play test so I can show you some of Lara's new moves and the geometry. So let's save and build. We have moved the position of Lara to this new room. So this is where she's coming from, the city of Vilcabamba. And like in the original game, she makes her way out here into this new cave, which of course we all know is the Lost Valley. So let's explore the area we built first, this new area. This is Lara's new platforming moves. She can now get in and out of a crawl space at any height. Previously, Lara had to do this move if she wanted to go into a crawl space like that, but now she can do it at any height. We have our skulls now, which is what we're telling the players is that means we can use it for monkey swing. The player will have to monkey swing across because if they fall into the water, at the in the end result, obviously Lara will sink into the waterfall. Obviously, if she falls into the water now, there's no damage done. I imagine the player will have to shimmy around this corner. So this could be the area in the Lost Valley where Lara would find the shotgun. And obviously we turn the water off here in the end result. But what's really cool with 10 is that this is a new feature. Lara can now climb a wall even when she's in water. So this is a brand new move. Previously Lara had to be on dry land or somewhat on dry land if she wanted to use a ladder, but she can now go directly from swimming. So even though this is our test and we're in the early parts of actually finishing the level, it's still fully traversable. And as you can see, she can even use the ladder around the corner. And this would be where we'd have our cog puzzle with the levers that would activate it if you had all pieces. So let's dive into the water. As you can see, it will not pull Lara into the waterfall just yet. And Lara will fall into it like that, which I think looks really, really cool. Obviously, we have our waterfall here, but we can go through it because we said it to be traversable. And this would be the entrance to Qualipex's tomb in the future once we learn how to turn it on and off. So as you can see, we did divide this cave up even more, but it's not noticeable. It's not noticeable. We've done that if you do it right, although, as you can see, we have a missing texture there, so I'll have to go back into the Tomb Editor and fix that. That's the importance of testing your levels, is that you can come across these issues and fix them. Always test, test, test. So Lara can climb up here before she makes her way out into the Lost Valley jungle. And as you can see, we applied our special textures there. Even though this is a doorway, we put some foliage on the stones and rocks. Although it doesn't really look that good. I mean, it was good for a tutorial. We might even turn that off ourselves. But as you can see, the water's all animated. It looks really, really good. I think the animation's running at a good frame rate. So your level's really beginning to come to life. In this tunnel, as you can see, this is the corner wall, which I kind of give you an introduction to and an overview to. And as you can see, we changed this to now be a ladder rather than the traditional classic Tomb Raider way of just vaulting on blocks. We've turned this into a ladder just to add more variety to the gameplay, although we may even change the transition textures there. This is our temple, which again has some foliage hanging out of it, which looks kind of cool. As you can see, we animated the textures again, so the level's really coming to life. I mean, we've really completed building out all of this map. As I mentioned before, the importance of testing is that it does allow you to go into your level and see if there's any broken textures, which we can kind of quickly fix now. And again, to undo some things we may have added, which in hindsight was a bad idea. So again, to go over what we learned in this tutorial, we finished building out the entire level. I've kind of discussed how in the future we're going to plan how to turn the water on and off depending on what the situation is with the cog puzzle, which is the primary objective of the Lost Valley, so she can enter Qualipec's tomb. We've built environments that take more advantage of Lara's extensive moveset. We have monkey swinging, we have shimmying around corners, we have a ladder to climb out of the water even, and climbing around corners. So that's really an overview of building in Tomb Engine and Tomb Editor. I think this completes the first section of our tutorials. The next set of tutorials will go over lighting, objects, sound effects, triggering, adding special effects, how are we going to turn the water on and off and show the entrance to the tomb. But yeah, I mean, we've built a full level together in these 5 tutorial videos, which just goes to show you how quickly you can build a big map in Tomb Engine and Tomb Editor. That's the beauty of this game engine, because it really is about sculpting. It's quite like clay or Play-Doh. You can build environments really, really fast. It just takes some imagination and some getting used to. So I hope these tutorials you found very helpful. Of course, you can always download the project files for every step of the way. There's a link in the description below. There's a link in the description to all the resources you need to do these tutorials. But I hope you really, really enjoyed it, and I hope it really helped you get started with building your level in Tomb Editor. I think it's fair to say that building is the hardest part. Learning how to do doors and, making water. I think a lot of new beginners, even on their own, figure out how to place objects like Lara or baddies. They may even do some of their own lighting. But I wanted to cover building and texturing first because that's typically the hardest part of building a level. If you enjoyed these tutorials, there is a playlist so you can watch all of them, of course. But do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for future tutorials for Tomb Editor and Tomb Engine. Hope you found it useful and helpful. Do, of course, give all of the videos a thumbs up. And I will see you all in my next video. Thank you and bye.